Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:48 PM and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby?
Here.
Mr. Helmer? Ms. Connick?
Here.
Mr. Kurth?
Here.
Ms. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Seidel?
Here.
Ms. Wonderchek?
Here.
Mr. Helmer let me know he is going to be late this evening. Now I would entertain a motion to recess to closed session.
Madam President, I move to adjourn in the closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, 1C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the approval of closed session minutes of January 23rd, B, the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, and C, returning to open session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Seidel. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth?
Yes.
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Ms. Connick?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Ms. Wonderchek?
We are moving into closed session. We'll return to open session around 7 o'clock. It is now 7 o'clock, and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the City Library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal-Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. We have privilege of the floor. Do we have any today? Okay, we don't have anybody speaking today. President's message. I'd just like to say thank you to Orchard Lane for inviting us to your school today, and we look forward to hearing more about your school. Now we have the administrative team report.
Actually, we're going to hear about the Orchard Lane updates right now.
All
So
right.
we'll bring up the admin team from Orchard Lane.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Orchard Lane. It's great to have you here with us tonight. I am Royce Linder, very proud principal here at Orchard Lane. Julie, you got you, Julie. There you go.
And I'm Julie Cater, the associate principal here. Thanks for coming.
We might have to do a little bit of that and think about that as we go through our slides. So we have prepared a presentation for you to let you know a little bit about Orchard Lane. Both the things that have been happening here at school and also how our students are performing academically as well. For Julie and I working together, this is our third year working together, and I can honestly say that every year it keeps on getting better. You know, the more that we get to learn the students, the more we get to learn the families, it's just a wonderful place to be. So we're excited to talk with you about Orchard Lane tonight. First slide that we'd like to share with you is something I'm sure you've seen before. It's our school report card. This is a school report card from last year. We received an overall score of 85.1, which put us into the significantly exceeds expectation range, which is excellent. We're really excited about that. Well, the last two report cards have been in that exceeding expectation range, which is also good, but we really are looking to keep that in that significantly exceeding range. And hopefully, after we get in there last year, we continue to do that going forward. We want to speak with you a little bit about some of the literacy goals and kind of how they fit into the overall district literacy action plan when it comes to literacy. So what we have is, I'll actually go to the next slide. The next slide here talks a little bit about, in the year 2030, our goal is to ultimately get to 80% of our students being either proficient and advanced as measured by the Wisconsin Forward assessment. So in order to kind of look at that, kind of that very big goal that we have for ourselves down the road, we have to kind of figure out what is that going to look like for us as individual schools from year to year. And really what we're looking to do is on an annual basis, we're looking to grow the number of students that are either proficient or advanced as measured by that Forward in literacy about 3.5% every single year. So as you know, we don't necessarily get our Forward data back right away. So it's kind of hard for us to take a look at that within that school year to see how we're doing. So what we actually do is we developed as a group of elementary schools, along with Brady, we actually developed some benchmarks that we want to hit and that we can monitor throughout the year using FastBridge. So a lot of the data that you'll actually be looking at tonight is going to be really related to how our students are doing on those FastBridge assessments, which is great because although the Forward takes a look at 3, 4, 5, 6, our FastBridge data takes a look at K6. So it's kind of nice to be able to see not just how our third graders and up are doing, but also our students that are in those early grades as well. So talking a little bit about benchmarks, we have a couple different assessments that we take a look at when it comes to understanding how our students are performing in literacy. So we have at the earliest grades, we have the early reading and early math. And then we also have the CBM reading. CBM reading basically is going to be the curriculum-based measures. A lot of those have to do around like fluency, how students are doing, and meeting the marks that are set, that are normative across the country. We have auto reading, auto math. Those are going to be more of the combination of different assessments that are like kind of put together to give us an overall score. So as we kind of moved from, as you know, moving from MAP assessments that really kind of gave us one score based on like a RIT, we have multiple assessments that we're doing with our students to get a clear picture of how they're performing as readers. Different benchmark categories that you're going to see. You're going to see students that could be in what is called a high risk range, some risk, low risk, or advanced. Those benchmarks are really set forth by Fastbridge, and we take a look at kind of understanding where our students are falling and how we are obviously moving those students out of those risk ranges into either low risk or advanced. So one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about is when it comes to A reading. A reading, we're kind of looking at understanding, well, what mark are we looking for? What percentile are we looking for our students to score? And really, what does that percentile mean? So we took a look at this as an elementary team again, and we tried to find some correlative data to understand if our students are performing really about that at that 55th percentile level, they're known to be more successful on some of those state measures as being in that proficient and advanced range, which is exactly what we want. So as a group of elementaries, we decided on that 55th percentile when it came to the A reading assessment. So you'll see a little bit of that data tonight. So we have, not all of our students take the A reading assessment. So what we decided is we took a look again, across those elementary schools and decided, well, which assessment are we going to take a look at? And then as to measuring our students throughout the year. So with our kindergarten and first graders, we took a look at that early reading assessment. At our second and third graders, we took a look at that CBM, which again is that curriculum-based measure for reading. And then at grades 4, 5, and 6, we use A reading. So what we have here in front of you is taking a look at how students scored from the spring of the last year, where they left us last year. We actually ramped up that percentile of about that 3.5%. So like for instance, if a grade level scored at about 65th percentile, about 65% of our students are 65% of our students are scoring above the set percentile that we're going for. What we're looking to do is increase that percent going into the spring of this year. Now, we're only at winter of this year, but it was a great opportunity for us to kind of take a look at how are we doing. So the grade levels that are in green there, those are grade levels that have already exceeded the spring of 2023 mark that we had set. The grade levels that are in yellow, second and third grade, those are grade levels that have not yet exceeded where we want them to be in the spring, but have gone farther, have advanced since the fall testing that we did earlier this year. And the two grade levels that are in red, first grade and fourth grade, they're not at where we want them to be for the spring, and they also saw a little bit of a slide from the fall assessment scores that they had. So those are all things that we take a look at. Right now, we are kind of in the thick of really our mid-year data dive. We actually have some grade level meetings set up starting this week where we kind of take a look at each individual grade level and kind of understand like how those students are performing, and then also like what's our plan? Like what are we actually doing to be responsive to that mid-year data that we have? So there'll be a few more slides here that kind of like really break down some things individually by grade level, and I know that the board has had a chance to see some of those, but I'm going to go through those slides relatively quickly for sake of time. But really we're taking a look here at the third grade, and what we can see here is a comparison from last year to this year, just at third grade. So two different groups of students you're taking a look at there, but you can kind of see how the students are performing at the third grade level from last year as compared to this year. On two different measures there, the CBM and also the A reading. This next slide takes a look at the same cohort. So you have one cohort of students from winter of last year to winter of this year. A little bit of a slide there, as you can see from that current fourth grade data. This is a breakdown of how our students, the three different measures that we had talked about, starting on the far left here, we have the early reading, the 2-3 CBM reading, and then finally the 4 through 6 A reading. So you can kind of see, like, you would almost have to kind of take a look at, go from blue and scooch over to red to the next grade level up to look at the same cohort. But you can also see how our grade levels are performing from the last 2 years of using FastBridge. Two through 6, this goes back to that general benchmark, that 55th percentile that we were talking about before. That's where the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade data lies for that A reading. Also, you have the same data here for math as well. This goes back to 3rd grade math, comparison from winter 22 to winter 2023. This would be that cohort data that you saw earlier for reading, but for math this time. And lastly, the K through 6 data for math in the school. Lastly, the A math piece for grades 2nd through 6. We're excited to kind of dive into this a little bit more with our individual grade levels. We're going to also, Julie and I also are going to take a look at some of this kind of big picture wise just for the school. We're actually even going to kind of break things down a little bit, get into some more of our disaggregated data a little bit, see how some of our individual student groups are doing, and really, again, how we can be responsive to that data to make sure that our students continue to improve and get to where we want them to be.
Thanks, Royce. So we do have two other goals that we're working on here this year. Our first one is what we call our school community goal. And this is, at the end of every year, there's a survey given out to staff just asking all kinds of different questions where staff in our building feel like we need to improve, not only as a school as a whole, but even with, Royce and I and our leadership. And so we took a look at two areas. Our two areas of focus this year are communication and safety. And when we look at safety, it's not safety of the physical structure. It's more or less the safety of our students in the sense of how are we responsive to behaviors, students that are in crisis, and even their social emotional learning, which I'll talk about in a few slides. But that's what we're looking at, and that's what our focus is. And our hope is by the end of this year, when we take this survey again, that we see, of course, the percentages of favorables move up. And how are we doing that? A number of ways as an entire staff, but we really try to focus on our core values here at Orchard Lane. We have 5 of them: responsibility, respect, kindness, perseverance, and integrity. And so when we look at the makeup of our students, and one thing that we really focused on this year, and Royce will talk about it in a little bit, is really that kindness. Because again, that really correlates to safety and kids kind of being, I guess, feeling a part of the community, feeling like they want to be here at school, and that, they're involved with other things, which again, I'll talk about in a few slides. But here we're looking at a couple of our pictures. We have, if students demonstrate one of those core values, they earn star tickets. As you walked in, you saw our big stars. We filled 2 of those, 1 for each quarter so far. And what happens is then we get an all-school incentive. And so we've had 2 all-school incentives so far. Looking forward to the third star filling up. In fact, you can see some of the star tickets have already been placed on that star. Another thing that we've done, we started last year, and we really continued and are moving forward with what we call our bag tags. And so if students go above and beyond demonstrating one of our 5 core values, they can be nominated by any staff member in the building to get what's called a bag tag. And so what it is, if you see the picture up there at the top, the little girl has a bag tag hanging from her backpack. And so that is a star, and inside that star, it would say one of our core values. And then what we do is at lunchtime, we announce all of our bag tag winners, and then Royce and I go around and we put the bag tags on the kids' backpacks and give them high fives and cheer them on to keep moving. We've also, along with Elmwood, we have brought in Playworks this year, which has been phenomenal during our recess time. It's really, again, revolving around our core values. And also, it's bringing out some of our leadership qualities amongst some of our older kids to kind of help some of those younger kids at recess and demonstrate, the respect and the safety, responsibility, and things like that on the playground.
So as Julie and I built this presentation, we were kind of looking for, well, what would be a theme, or what would be something that would kind of we wanted to make sure we leave the board with, and we took a look at it. Really kind of revolved around kindness. So earlier this year, we actually had our very first our first fundraising campaign, really big fundraising campaign that Julie and I have been a part of. We went through Raise Craze, which is also something that Elma does as well, and it was phenomenal. It was such a great fundraiser. It was all about understanding. Gaining donations to the school, but also then the students making a commitment to actually pay those donations forward in acts of kindness. So in just under 3 weeks, we had a goal of 2,000 registered acts of kindness. We logged over 2,500 acts of kindness. One of the other boards that you probably saw on the way in is like that galaxy of stars. When students logged in the act of kindness, they actually got to put their name on a star and hang it up on the board. So we had all kinds of different incentives. What actually, it was great. One of the incentives we had for our students is they actually had a chance. Our top act of kindness registrar and our top donation earner both got an opportunity to choose either a limo lunch, or we partnered with the New Berlin Fire Department, and they allowed the student to have the option of actually having a ride into school in a fire truck. So it was great. So we had a 4th grader who chose the limo lunch, and our kindergartner chose the fire truck ride, which I'm sure most kindergartners were. It was amazing. So we actually met out at the Racine Firehouse, and they actually took him all through the firehouse and showed him all the gear, and he got to come in, and the sirens were wailing, and his class was out there to greet him, and he got out of there like he was just king of the world. So it was really, really cool. Our PFC that we work with as our Parent Faculty Council, their support during this fundraiser was unreal. It was we were so happy to be able to do this together. We actually put together, so there's a punch board there that Julie's standing by there. So when kids either got their donations or registered their acts of kindness or sent out a certain number of emails, they actually got to fill up this bingo sheet. And if kids actually filled up their entire bingo sheet, they got to go into this punch board. So there was like 70 some individual prizes that were in there that kids got to actually punch. And then it was just like kind of the Price is Right game where you reach inside and you get to see what your prize is. And we had everything from Mario Kart parties to piñatas to different gift cards and things like that were gathered by our PFC. Going back to the communication, one of the things that Julie and I are continuing to do this year is our principal chats. We actually started those earlier when we were still kind of not able to necessarily come together as full groups. We actually started virtual chats. We actually found like some feedback from our families that the virtual chats actually worked out better. They were a little bit easier for families to attend. And what Julie and I do is we we solicit information from our families prior to the principal chats, and we basically say, hey, if there's anything you want us to talk about, if there's any questions you have or any things that you want us to address during the principal chat, let us know. And so families will actually give us some information, and then we build our principal chat around the things that we want to highlight as an admin team, and then also some of the things that are on the mind of our families. So it's a really good way for us to stay connected to our families. We had over 20 families in our last chat, which is really nice, and we'll do one of those every single quarter.
Our third goal that we're working on this year deals with social emotional learning of our students. And again, this is all taking a look at survey data from last year where our parents and our students are telling us they would like more support. And so this is why we really focused on a social emotional learning goal. Again, we're trying to be responsive to the needs of our students and our families. And so talking a little bit about some of the things that we either have continued and maybe enhanced a little bit or are doing new this year. We continue to meet with our student family support team at Orchard Lane. That consists of Mr. Lindner, myself, Mr. Rennick, who is our school psychologist, and Ms. Sorge, who is our elementary social worker. And so we meet bi-weekly, discuss, a variety of different things that have come across each of our plates as far as our students and their social emotional needs. And what that has done, it has allowed us to do some very direct support to the students that are in need, whether they be individual meetings, whether it be lunch bunch with Ms. Sorge or Mr. Rennick, or this year, brand new, we are in the process of just getting started what we call a family change group as well for students that have experienced some sort of change within their family, and the parents have reached out to us and asked us to maybe help support that a little bit. And that will be run by Mr. Rennick and Ms. Sorge as well. We have partnered this year with Clinical Psychology Associates, in which one of their therapists comes in, again, responsive to the families asking for some individual therapy, and they come in once a week, use our building, and meet with students 1 day a week. We have Securely, which the district has been a part of for a number of years now, but it has found to be very successful for us because sometimes we don't necessarily have students that come right out to us, but maybe there's something that they might search on the internet, or maybe there's an email they might send in which the Securely will grab that as a indicator that that child probably needs some help. And that has also been one way that we have been able to be responsive to their needs. Care Solace, which again is a district partnership in which parents have said, I can't get in to see a therapist for my child for months. Is there anything that you can do to help? And so with our partnership with Care Solace, we've been able to get them into, for them to see a therapist a lot sooner than maybe they would have just trying to do that on their own. And then along with our district student services department, again, as part of being responsive to the needs of our students, we are working with a board-certified behavior analysis that has come in and done some professional learning opportunities for our teachers as far as how can we be responsive to the students that might be showing some different behavior needs, or maybe students that might be in crisis. And this is aligned with our district multi-level systems of support team as well.
Just in reflection of putting together the presentation, that last slide that Julie went through, all those things have been done recently with the support of the school board, with the support of our admin team, with the support of our student services team. Those things, a lot of those things that you saw on that slide, they didn't even exist even when we first started kind of working together. So what we've been able to do and what we've been able to do in terms of supporting students' social emotional learning needs, it's been remarkable. One of the things we also have started here is a school-based leadership team program, and we're looking at a shared leadership opportunity where our Thursday morning meetings that we have as a staff, we have a variety of different things that we tend to in those Thursday morning meetings, and one of the things is a school-based leadership team where staff had the opportunity to kind of voice their interest in one of the different areas that we had for leadership support. And what we did this year is we actually gave each of those teams their own budget. Because what we saw last year is we saw teams came up with these really good ideas, but they kind of stalled in the fact that they kind of felt like they needed extra permission to be able to go forward with some of those ideas. So we actually aligned some dollars to each of these teams, and what we're seeing this year is we're starting to see some really cool things come out of these school-based leadership teams that are being led by our staff. For instance, tomorrow night we actually have our family game night, which is Thursday night. It's only Monday? That's okay. Thursday night we have our family game night, and that came from our parent connection team, our family connection team, and we're very happy about that. Our SEL team actually put together an impact grant that was approved to be able to build out some spaces for students to work on regulation within the classroom, which is outstanding, especially in our school where we don't necessarily have some of the other set spaces designated for that. So we really need to do that work in the classroom. So we've really seen some amazing things coming out of that shared leadership opportunity. Really want to kind of highlight a couple of the special events that have taken place here at Orchard Lane this year. We're really happy to be able to have our kindergarten camp in August. That's a fantastic opportunity for our incoming kindergarten families to get into Orchard Lane, get into those kindergarten classrooms. We have an outstanding turnout for that. I think we want to say probably over 90% of our incoming kindergarten students attend that kindergarten camp. So there are half-day programs put on by our kindergarten team for 3 days where they actually get a chance to come into the schools, learn a little bit about what school is about and what kindergarten is about. Our first day of school is our Cheers and Tears ceremony. We love that. It's an opportunity to have our sixth graders welcome. They actually make a bridge for our kindergartners coming in. And then last year we actually flipped it, and our kindergarten kids made a bridge for our sixth graders as they left Orchard Lane for the last time. We had our trunk or treat, which is put on by our PFC, just one of our many events. It's a lot of fun. And then we just enjoyed our partnerships with not only the New Berlin Police Department, but also the fire department. They came out and actually played kickball as an earned benefit for one of our fourth grade classes. We have a new literacy program, as I know you know. One of the things that's turned out really cool is some of the culminating events that we've seen come out of the CKLA and Amplify work that we have done this year. On the far left, earlier this year, we had a nursery rhyme Olympics. And so all the different nursery rhymes that the students were learning, they actually built some of the actual events around there, like this is Jack, the candlestick. Instead of actual candlesticks, obviously they're jumping over cones. But we had all kinds of different nursery rhymes, and the kids got a chance to kind of really experience a really fun culminating event, and just to see the way the staff has embraced, the knowledge part of that CKLA. It's been really, really cool. Our sixth grade team on the right, you see 3 of our members of our sixth grade team there. They were studying yellow fever, and they were realizing the kids are having a really hard time kind of understanding the different scientists that were involved in that process. And so what this team decided completely on their own, what they decided to do is actually dress like the scientists so that the kids could kind of put faces to these names as they were reading. And actually Mrs. Charles on the far right there, those are all Mrs. Mrs. Charles on the right there, she actually came down with yellow fever, and throughout the day she actually put makeup on throughout the day to make herself look more jaundiced and actually and ended up dying of yellow fever at some point during the day. So, but to be able to bring to life, quote unquote, that type of learning and that type of experience for our students, really it shows a lot of commitment, and we're super proud of the way that our teachers have really brought that together for students.
And one last thing that we really want to highlight here at Orchard Lane, since Royce and I have been together, we haven't really had the opportunity to bring in a lot of co-curriculars and extracurriculars for our students. We started last year. We actually had 3 different co-curriculars last year. And then this year, we're excited that we actually are now up to 7 co-curriculars that we are offering to our students. And our goal is every year we want to build upon that. And so these are just some pictures of our students that have been able to participate in some of the co-curriculars. So with that, I think Mr. Linder's going to finish it up.
We always like to end with kind of like, well, what's next? So those are all like really wonderful things, but what's going to be next for us? What's happening right now, and what's going to be happening throughout the remainder of the year? Where we're at right now is we're at our mid-year dive. It's a really exciting time. You know, when we set our goals in the beginning of the year, we take a look at how we're actually supporting students at the beginning of the year. We're really kind of doing that with based on information that came from probably last spring. But to be able to be responsive to our mid-year data and we have those impactful meetings with staff are really exciting. We are continuing with, so a couple years ago, Julie and I started the Anti-Bullying Coalition here, and it's a combination of adult support, staff support, and student support. With our kindness theme, we actually are changing it, and we're changing to the Kindness Coalition because we were really seeing like that a lot of our work is focusing on how do we emphasize that particular value that we have and its impact overall in helping us really kind of keep any bullying behaviors down. Our continued work with Playworks, we actually have our person is going to be coming out here pretty soon here in February to kind of like our consultant's going to come back and work with us, work with our staff, take a look at how our kids are responding to the things that we're putting out there for Playworks and how we can continue to grow that program. And the last thing I want to invite everyone to is, as we don't necessarily have tours tonight, but we are going to have like our Star Commons, our former library space. The door is going to be open to that. So I know many of you have been here before, but if you go down, the first door is still locked because we still have some scaffoldings up from our art students from West who are actually painting the mural right now. They're in process. If you go down to the next set of doors, those doors will be open if you want to check it out. Because those of you that have seen the library before, when you look at it again, you already can start to almost not recognize it. Like the painting, like the paint and the carpet work, it's just really nice. The makerspace area that we have, it's fantastic. So we're very proud of that. Any questions from anyone?
Well, thank you very much for putting this together. I know that there was a bit of back and forth when it came to the academic information, so I appreciate the time you guys put into it. And I know you did some of it last minute, because I know we had some confusion on things. So I have a question then on slide 10.
You're going to make me count backwards? All right, here we go.
Yeah, it goes way back to all grade level reading skills benchmark data.
Sure. Is it this one?
Oh, let's see.
No, 2 more, I think. Or 1 more.
This one.
Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah.
All great. I'm trying to, just trying to follow around, understanding. So under each grade, we're looking at, so are we comparing last year's grade K to this year's kindergarten, last year's first grade to this year's first grade in each of those?
You can do a little bit of both. So the hard part is that when you move from out of first grade into second grade and out of third grade into fourth grade, they're actually different.
Right.
As that cohort moves, the measure moves, right? So really, I think this slide is built to take a look at how our students have done on those individual assessments in each of the 2 years. So the red and blue, like in kindergarten, are going to be 2 completely different cohorts
Okay, that's
of
what I
kids.
was wondering.
But if you want to take a look from K to 1, you can kind of like slide from blue to red, and then from 2 to 3, you can slide from blue to red, and then 4, 5, 6, you can go from blue to red, and then blue to red, to kind of see how that same cohort is doing.
So looking at this slide, this is our benchmark for whether kids will be on at grade level at the end of the year, right? So if we go from kindergarten last year was 83% to first grade this year is 74.
Well, it'd be 70. Well, it's 70. Yeah,
71, I'm
83
sorry,
to 71.
71.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's a 12-point drop. And then you see from I mean, it goes the other way as well. So
Sure.
from fifth grade, 76 to 84, it's an 8. How good is this measurement really if we're not even close on these numbers? Like the swings just seem a lot larger than they would. Or does that stand out to anyone else, or is that just me?
I mean, when you take a look at some, when you take a look at individual, break it down to individual, like how many students are going to be there, like, so that's the work we do with our grade level team. So that's kind of where the work gets done. So the work gets done, so like, for instance, if we sit down with our, say, our first grade team, we have an individual meeting set up with them right now. We'll take a look at that and we'll say, like, hey, at this time last year, these students were at the percentile mark, or at the mark that we wanted them to be at. They're not there right now, so what are we going to do about it? And that's where we actually kind of get into understanding, well, what happened? What are we seeing? What are some other measurements that we can actually bring into play? How are they doing on the enacted curriculum? And how are we supporting them, not just in, like start time, which is that intervention time, but also I think within that block time as well. So yes, you can definitely see, like, with any other data, you're going to see maybe some fluctuation, but it's how we respond to it that's going to make a difference.
I guess more generically, did we see these same swings with, what was the exam before that?
MAP.
MAP. Did we see the same swings with that?
You could, yeah. I would have to go back and kind of take a look at that, but you could see some of those same types of swings, yeah.
It seems like we're trending down in elementary, but kind of trending up early elementary, and then trending up in later elementary, but it's.
I had a few questions as well. Obviously not in education, and thank you for your guys' time.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. I can't wait to see the makerspace, having spent lots of time in this building. I kind of looked at this coming from a different, background and with a different lens, and I had kind of taken away some of the same key things, like, okay, it looks like we're dropping and then, increasing other areas.
Mm-hmm.
When you are doing your deep dive, what sort of adjustments will you guys be making as a team?
It's a great question.
And then what support do you need from admin so that, those adjustments are made so we can meet our goals? Because at the end of the day, that's obviously why we're all here.
Yeah, so what we'll actually do is when we sit down with the grade level teams, we actually turn these numbers, these overall like percentile numbers, we actually turn them into actually a list of actual students. So then we take a look at, we have, as all of our elementary schools have, we have our intervention time, which are built into some intervention groups, which is also, like, again, taking skills that are actually recommended by this FastBridge assessment to be able to support and grow the students. We take a look at, are we implementing those to fidelity? Who's running those? How are we progress monitoring those? So we actually kind of look at supporting individual students as opposed to like necessarily making like changes like we won't necessarily make a change grade level wide or even classroom wide based on some of these numbers, but we'll actually take a closer look at the individual students themselves.
So as a principal and your teachers, what were some of your guys' key takeaways from the data? Have you guys had, I know you said you're in your mid-year deep dive, but what were some of your key takeaways then?
I think some of our key takeaways are like we have had some we've had some students be very like successful with some of the intervention programming that we have had. In particular, we have seen some growth with our students who are using one program in particular, which is Sunday. So we've seen some real growth there. Some of the other takeaways that we have are just looking at the effectiveness of like our start time, our intervention programming. We have had some students that, for instance, thinking of some examples of conversations that we'll be having later this week. Some of those groups maybe had 2 or 3 students that were working within the same recommended program through FastBridge, but then we're actually seeing some students that are plateauing, some students aren't growing, where other students have maybe grown out of that particular program. So then we take a look at both the programs themselves and the human resources we have to be able to implement those programs, and we could do a lot of different like regrouping and re-racking to kind of say like, okay, so if these students maybe don't need the same program anymore, they've actually grown out of that, let's take a look at maybe the 2 students that were in that group that haven't grown the way we want them to do and figure out what are we going to do for those 2 students. So really the major takeaways that we have are kind of looking at how our intervention program is able to kind of be responsive and be able to support targeted skills as measured by this FastBridge. We also sometimes take a look too at within that enacted curriculum. Our teachers are keeping track of like how students are doing on the different assessments that they actually have through CKLA. And so we kind of take a look too and see, is this data indicative of who that student is as a reader at this point, or potentially could we actually see like a little blip? Because it does kind of come down to, anytime you put down one assessment's worth of data, it does come down to one test, one day. And we take a look at how does that also balance with what we're seeing from the student on an individual or on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. And then my last question, I promise. If you were to give strengths and weaknesses of this new curriculum, is there any standouts or any feedback that you can relay back to us as far as your just thoughts on it so far?
I would say that some of the things that I've seen as a particular strength is an exposure to like the knowledge piece in particular has been really interesting to see like what the students have been able to kind of like take on and be able to comprehend. When you think about some of the different content that the students are diving into through this knowledge piece and what the teachers have been able to do to kind of make that make that accessible for students, that's been really fascinating. And I would say like not only what the students have been excited about learning, but what the teachers have been excited to teach has been great. As far as kind of like breaking down like how the students are doing on individual like literacy skills, I think there's still quite a bit of work that we can do to kind of figure out how this program is addressing some of those pieces and the strengths that we're seeing there. But what we're seeing as far as teachers being confident with the delivery of content and what the students are being able to absorb, it's been really cool. So like there's definitely an energy when it comes to what's happening with our ELA time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I really only have one question.
Sure.
Other than, I have a couple more that I can always follow up with. But can you describe to me what a universal design for learning is?
Absolutely. So, universal design for learning is it's a method to be able to construct, and it's an instructional model where we take a look at, instead of saying like I want to differentiate specifically for student A, B, or C, it's kind of taking a look at how can we actually pre-design that instruction so that it be inclusive of the needs prior to having to plan separately for individual students. So the way I kind of take a look at universal design is, if you're constructing a building, you want to make sure that that building is accessible for all people the first time you build it, as opposed to now realizing, oh, now we need to put in ramps, and we need to put in elevators, and we need to put in all these things, because retrofitting all that stuff after the original instruction has been planned is much more challenging. So in universal design, it's an idea of saying, how can we plan for as many students as possible the first time around, as opposed to trying to figure out, now I need to plan separately for Royce, or I need to plan separately for Julia once I've actually built my instructional plan.
Okay. And then my other question is diversity and inclusion. What does that entail?
So the diversity and inclusion is about kind of making sure for the school-based leadership team.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so for that, it's really about kind of understanding like are students seeing themselves in our school? Are they feeling like they're connected to the building? Are we making sure, like with the diversity and inclusion, we're also making sure that that's kind of where some of our anti-bullying work is coming in as well. We want to make sure that the students are have a meaningful purpose here at Orchard Lane, and that they feel comfortable and they feel that this is their home.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Angelina.
Students are fully adjusted into the new semester and continuing to go above and beyond with their hard work, not only in academics but co-curricular activities as well. Madame Ragnaby decided to bring a brand new addition to her curriculum for all French classes. Students participated in Le Concours Oral, which is a French pronunciation contest where they worked for 2 weeks to memorize a poem based on their language level, then submitted a video and sent to the judges. In Senorita Santiago's class, Heritage Spanish learners had to read, explain, listen, write, and sequence events to build a story in order to further their understanding. Many students also presented the Heritage Spanish course and Education Concepts course during Flex at Eisenhower and played a bilingual version of the game Choke and got to learn a bit more about each other. Not only this, but Senorita Thompson announced she will be back in Spain in June to accept the Spanish Honor Society Advisor of the Year Award from the American Association of Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese. Student Sebastian Correa was one of 18 high school juniors from around the U.S. to be awarded a scholarship for an all-expenses trip to Costa Rica this July through Spanish Honor Society. Also, senior Ralph Audi was featured on the New Berlin Neighbors magazine due to his love for orchestra and French classes, his participation on the soccer team and more clubs and organizations than we can count, but also his dedication in creating his own organization in the school for more students similar to him wanting to expand their knowledge on the human body. Our New Berlin Blitz robotics team has been busy building Scribblebots where they went to Poplar Creek and taught 6th graders how to build them as well. They also held a donut fundraiser at both West and Ike, provided by the National Bakery, where they revenued a total of $600 in profit. NBW DECA competed at DECA districts in Kettle Moraine, where they placed 6 automatic state qualifiers and 7 who won hardware. These qualifiers include Maggie Blank, Sebastian Correa, Sonia Dillon, Vivian Din, Joshua Jacklin, Sydney Keelan, Graham McKenzie, Ben Miller, Amelia Olson, Sam Ricola, Amelia Sikri, Charlotte Walters, and Bailey Ward. Last week also consisted of DECA Week, which held multiple activities in and out of school, such as an indoor movie, a bake sale, and brand new Mr. NBW, a men's pageant show with boys selected from various clubs around the school, and junior Emilio Gary taking the title. Chambers Choir has been busy lately after performing at Ronald Reagan Assembly, where they shared why they joined choir and what responsibility means to them. Then preparing for Valentine's Day, where people could purchase a singing Valentine for $5, and Chambers Choir will deliver a song and a handwritten note to the selected person. Best Buddies has been having a lot of fun lately, having a flex event where they played glow-in-the-dark basketball and a Just Dance party, then decorating cookies and making crafts for Valentine's Day after school. They are also hosting their annual Valentine's Rocky Rococo sale, in which people can purchase a slice of pizza for $5 or 2 for $9. Then for lunch on Tuesday the 14th, students will have pizza awaiting them. Our Palms team made it to state in D4 hip hop, and Sophia Handrick advancing with her D2 solo, where they fought hard and showcased all their hard work from the year. And our cheer team ended local competitions fantastic, with a first in traditional and second in game day, where they will compete at regionals this weekend. They also held their annual bingo night with a raffle and silent auction, which included a nacho bar, a drink ticket, and a bingo card, and turned out another great success. Lady Vikings were on a roll with a big conference win over Wisconsin Lutheran, 53-45, and another 53-42 win over Whitnall, and Coach Thompson's 100th win as head coach of NBW girls basketball. Both our boys and girls basketball teams played a great defensive and physical game against our crosstown competitors Ike, but could not finish with a win. Our NB United swim team had a great last home meet of the season, where they then went on to conference, where Peyton Kaiser dropped 3 seconds off his 100-meter freestyle. They then moved on to sectionals and placed 7th, and are currently awaiting if anyone qualified for state. And finally, our New Berlin wrestling team has had an outstanding season with a record now of 12-0 after competing against Greendale High School, where they took the win for the 2nd year in a row as conference champions. Not only this, but they put all their hard work and effort in and took place at the Woodland Conference Tournament and are continuing to prove themselves as champions.
Thank you. That's a lot going on over there at New Berlin West.
We have no additional updates, Janet, thanks.
Okay. All right, well then we have the consent agenda. which includes the notice, the approval of minutes of the board meeting on January 23rd, and Bands of America Super Regional Competition Field Trip Approval Request. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer, second by Mr. Kurth to approve the agenda as, the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. On to the regular agenda. First on the regular agenda is to review and approve the financial statement audit.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mike Sama of Schumacher and Sama, our financial audit firm, to come forward and present the information from our annual audit.
Thanks, Pat. Good evening, everybody. I guess before I dive into this, I just want to give a thank you to Pat and the business office staff for always being prepared and helping the audit go smoothly. It's good for everybody, so thank you. All right, so we have a summary of the audit for this year. The first item, the audit report contains an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, meaning that the statements present the financial position and results of the operation of the year's operations fairly. Number two, the government auditing standards report on internal control and compliance over financial reporting identified two findings. One is the standard finding related to auditor preparation of the financial statements. Essentially, every school district has this finding. It's just more economical to hire their auditor to do the statements than to do it themselves. And then we had one other finding related to budget amendments. The district has created a process to eliminate this issue in the future. Number three, the single audit report on internal control and compliance over major federal and state programs identified one finding related to the state pupil transportation program, and the district has created a process to eliminate this issue in the future. Number four, our audit letter to the board addresses our responsibility as auditors and what you can expect from an audit and the financial statements. It states that there were no disagreements with management and we had no difficulties in performing this year's audit. And last, the district has implemented GASB statement number 87 leases for this year, which clarified reporting on leasing activities and resulted in adjustments to beginning fund balance and beginning net position, which I'll describe a little more in detail in the next section. Okay, so starting with governmental funds for this year's kind of final, just big picture numbers. For the balance sheet, total current assets, $24,619,120. Total current liabilities, $4,836,506. Fund balances, $19,782,614. And total liabilities and fund balance, $24,619,120. Then the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. Total revenues were $70,538,507. Total expenditures, $71,900,509. That was a net decrease in fund balance of $1,362,002. Then we go to the district-wide statements, which includes all of the buildings and equipment and things like that, long-term debts of the district that you don't see in the governmental fund statements. So for the statement of net position, total current assets, $24,546,751. Net capital assets, including pension assets and deferred outflows, $101,594,708. So total assets are $126,141,459. Total current liabilities, $8,721,991. Non-current liabilities and deferred inflows, $69,069,877. And the total net position is $48,349,591. Total liabilities and net position, $126,141,459. And then the statement of activities, excuse me, total revenues, $70,533,408. Total expenditures, $60,521,981. That was a net increase in net position of $10,011,427. Then just some budget highlights from the general fund. So the final budget had revenues of $55,086,819. Expenditures, including transfers, were $61,157,326. So that was a deficit of $6,070,507. And the actual results, $55,513,479 of revenues. Expenditures were $58,554,548. And so the actual deficit was $3,041,069. And then just laying out the adjustments that were made for GASB 87 leases. So for fund balance, we had to make a $37,935 adjustment to beginning fund balance. They're doing some strange things with wanting to record leases as assets. Basically, they say it's a right that you have to use an item, and therefore they consider that an asset. So we're kind of adding assets in some cases, and then recording liabilities where normally it was just, you know, a monthly lease payment, monthly lease expense. So it's kind of confusing, but that's what they say we have to do. So the adjustment to the net position was $469,804. So does anyone have any questions?
I'd like to thank Mike and his team from Sama, or Schumacher and Sama. We've developed, I believe, a very good working relationship over the last few years. One of the things that I'm the most proud of is our ability to work with the audit firm in working inside of our financial software to help cut down on the amount of, I'd call it manual pulls. I can remember when I first got into this business, the auditors would come into the district office, and the folks that I had working in the office would hide because they were going to end up going into file cabinets and pulling volumes of paper transactions so that the auditors could go through that. That has virtually been eliminated in our district. They're able to go in and pull all that information right directly from our financial software. And it's been a pleasure working with the audit firm in developing those skills. We look forward to that in the future.
I would agree. It is nice to be able to run our own reports and pull documents much easier.
Well, if there's no other questions, then do I have a motion to approve the financial statement audit as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and a second by Mr. Seidel to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Next up, discuss approve revision to the 2023-24 school year calendar.
So this is for next year. Based on feedback we received from our staff, they would like a professional learning day to be held around the time that we have our parent-teacher conferences, just to kind of get them a little bit of recovery time, because they do spend evenings for several nights. And based on that feedback, we're moving Professional Learning Day in October to November. And then we also just changed some of the end of quarter dates so that we had more balanced quarters throughout the year. So we'll seek your approval to essentially amend next year's calendar as presented.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer, a second by Mr. Kurth to approve the revision to the 2023-24 school year calendar as presented. Is there any discussion? Then all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next is discuss approve the 2024-25 school year calendar.
So again, this is as you just mentioned, Janet, this is for the 2024-2025 school year, so not next year, the year after. Essentially, it is very consistent with the one that you just approved. You know, we made that PL Day move like you just approved. And then, as is customary, it aligns with the county school districts where we are taking the last week of March as our spring break to align with all the other districts, or at least most districts around us. And so given that, we would recommend approval of this calendar as well.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer, a second by Mr., a second by Mr. Kurth to approve the 2024-25 school year calendar. Is there any discussion?
The number one request I get is to move spring break back of everything else. So do we actually, I thought we did it based on our conference for sports, or is it based on Waukesha County?
We were directed to follow what the county was doing. And so that's what we are doing as the county
You were directed by the board, or was that something?
Yes.
Okay.
at the time.
Yeah. No, I was just
Yeah.
curious.
All right, I'll give you some feedback. So what was going on is because our spring break didn't coincide with so many other spring breaks, that all families, other functions, everything that was going on kind of countywide, there was massive conflicts with kids having off and then other kids not being able to do what they needed to do. Families couldn't go on vacation because there were so many different, like, there was so much conflict when it wasn't conjunction.
Well, I mean, I get
Right,
it,
yeah,
but just
but-
Waukesha County is
Yeah, it was.
30 miles to the west of us, and Milwaukee County is 2 miles to the east of us. Like, I
No,
don't
but
know, that-
it became a huge headache, which is why when they were requesting to switch, it was kind of there's fairly long discussions on it, but there were so many conflicts with so many different other school districts and other events and sports as well, which is why we try to match with everybody.
Well, but that's why I was getting into sports. Is, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter what Waukesha County does. It matters what our
One of the
Our
other
conference does.
reasons we switched is because we had teachers that were off different weeks than their kids. So we tried to make it standard so the teachers would be off the same week as their children too.
Do we know if a majority of our teachers are in Waukesha County residing?
I
That's
don't. I
part of
think the
this too.
difficulty, though, is that we were able to actually agree as Waukesha County superintendents, and we've not had that agreement with Milwaukee County.
Yeah, let me rephrase. I didn't think we should align with Milwaukee. I was thinking more our
Conference.
conference,
Yeah.
because it would be sports would be the number one driver for me. Because if we've got games scheduled, then I mean you're missing 2 weeks if us and who's not in our conference, Thomas More or whoever
Yeah,
else we
yeah,
have in our
yeah.
conference.
I mean, I think, based on that concern, I mean, we can certainly reach out to them and ask them.
I was just curious.
To align
I didn't know
to-
if the other conferences or if the other schools in our conference are a week off or a month off, or if most of them fall in that same time too. I was just curious what was driving that.
Yeah, it was just because we were able to, as at least Waukesha County superintendents, we could agree to that. But we can, Mitch, I'll check, though.
Okay. I mean, we've got 2 years away, so I don't know if that's that big of
Yep.
a deal to revise it if we really wanted to later.
No problem, thanks.
Sorry, that's it.
Okay, no other discussion, then all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. And then we have our WASB convention update from our WASB representative. Go ahead. Thanks.
So I am the WASB delegate for our district, and I attended the convention in Milwaukee, which was on January 18th, 19th, and 20th downtown. At that time, we had, there's a few things I just want to highlight about the convention. There's the delegate meeting, which is one of the things that I attended on Wednesday, the 18th, at the delegate meeting, there were 19 resolutions that were offered for consideration. Ahead of that meeting, I had received some good feedback from our CFO, Pat Miller, who indicated to me that there were a few that he had some really good thoughts on that were very helpful to me in considering how we should vote on those things. Of the 19 resolutions that were offered, we didn't get to consider 17, 18, and 19 because we didn't run out of time. We ran out of a quorum. The discussion was going so long and people were leaving, and so eventually somebody called for a count of quorum, and so we ran out of quorum at about 4:30 on Wednesday. So then they had to halt discussion, and then those resolutions, 17, 18, 19, one of which was the addressing of the revenue limits, Pat, that you had commented on. So that one we didn't get to address. Of the resolutions that were addressed, all but one that were considered passed the convention by considerable margins. The one resolution that did not pass was a resolution that was surrounding literally free lunch for everyone. Some school districts had brought, I'm sorry to laugh, I shouldn't laugh. But there was a resolution that we as school districts in the state of Wisconsin should have universal free meals for all children, which I love. I think that's great. I think we should feed everybody. I just don't know where the money comes from. So that's my concern about that. That resolution did not pass. But of all the other resolutions, those other resolutions passed, including the resolution, Pat, the two resolutions that you and I had sort of discussed via email, which was the parent contracts for private school transportation, that passed, and the unemployment compensation resolution as well. So that also passed. In addition to the delegate meeting, our district actually did a district screening of a film. So Brady Reinke and Kelly Kwiatkowski came down to the convention, and they presented the movie The Truth About Reading. That was really well attended. There was it was almost like standing room only in the back, and so I was able to come in and see that. I hadn't seen that movie before. It was a really interesting film. They had a panel discussion. Kelly and Brady facilitated the discussion, and did a really nice job with that. And I thought it spoke well of our district, and I thought that was really nice to see at the convention. The third thing I wanted to offer is not related to convention, but is related to an event that WASB is holding in March. In March, in the biennial budget years, WASB usually holds an event called A Day at the Capitol. I attended this event, I believe it was about 4 years ago, but then they didn't have it in COVID, so that was canceled. Everybody was off, and at that, the date, if you're interested, is March 22nd. It's an all-day event at the Capitol. All school board members any school board member can attend. You just have to register with Ann. Ann would have to get you registered for that. I am not able to go this year because I have a conflict for work. But I would really, really, really encourage any and all of you to attend this event. It's a great event. It starts registration's at 8 o'clock in the morning in Madison at the Capitol. At 8:30, they have presentations and programming. The programming is done. It's a really nice event that WASB holds. They have their staff attorneys give presentations about what are things that are important to school districts to advocate for with our representatives that are elected to represent us, right? So they kind of give you, they really do give a really good lesson in legislative advocacy at this event. And so you can go and listen to what they're saying and sort of take all the materials, and then that happens in the morning. Then there's a networking lunch with all the school board members that are there, which was really great because I met with several other members from other districts at the time. I was the only one from New Berlin present at the year that I attended. And it was great to sort of exchange ideas with them as well. And then from 1:30 to 4, you meet with your elected representatives. So you can, meet with whoever our state senator is and whoever our assembly person is. And so I think it's really helpful to get in front of these people and to make sure that they know that these sorts of issues are, education and funding for education and facilitating all the things that we need are really important to us. And especially when I feel like sometimes there are, unfortunately, in legislation, venues, they kind of come up with these unfunded mandates for us. And that's never easy to deal with as a district, because all of a sudden we got to pull money from somewhere else that we didn't plan on pulling money from. So I feel like when we have an opportunity to get in front of these people, I think it's a really good idea for us. And I think it's, and I wish I could go. It was such a great event when I went a few years ago. I was looking forward to going again. But I didn't have, I can't move this conflict. So I'm hoping that somebody can go, but I think it would be a great opportunity. So those are all my updates. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have an action item discussed from closed session. Do I have a motion for that?
I move to approve the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Seidel to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Future meetings and dates, just a reminder, board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays beginning at 7:00 p.m. and moving forward will be held in the conference room E at the district office unless otherwise noted. So for Monday, February 27th, there is the meeting at 7:00. Monday, March 13th, also at 7:00. This time, though, it will be at the New Berlin Eisenhower Commons. And then Monday, March 20th at 7:00 back in conference room E. Now, we do have some more items we're going to be doing in closed session. So I would move to adjourn into closed session. Do I have a motion for that?
Do we need to read it again?
Yeah, go ahead.
I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 19.851C E and F 2 of the Wisconsin statutes to consider the review of superintendent goals and the review of a superintendent contract.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth, a second by Mr. Seidel to move into closed session. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth,
Yes.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Helmer,
Yes.
Ms. Connick,
Yes.
Ms. Schultz,
Yes.
Ms. Wondricek.
Yes.
We're moving into closed session and we will be adjourning in closed session. Thank you.